Hello to all the listeners of Right Mind podcast, a podcast produced by the Institute of European Rights, a think tank based in Vilnius. In the Right Mind podcast, we discuss various topics spanning from political theory, political philosophy to international affairs or Lithuanian internal affairs. My name is Teodor Žukas and I will be guiding this conversation. It is my greatest honor to introduce our today's guest, Mr. Yevhen Mahda. Hello, and thank you for being with us.
Hello, thank you very much for your invitation for our discussion, and I hope that it can be interesting and useful for all.
Thank you.
For all who has right mind.
Yes, quite right. Thank you very much. Yevhen Mahda is an associate professor at Igor Sikorsky Kyiv Polytechnic Institute, the National Technical University, and the executive director at the Institute of World Policy in Ukraine. He has had authored various reports, for instance, Hybrid War, Survive and Win, published in 2015, Russia's Hybrid Aggression, Lessons for Europe, published in 2017, and Games of Images, How Europe Perceives Ukraine, published in 2016. He has published a couple of books, one of which is the sixth Memories of a Future, a study of Ukrainian presidents that was published in 2017. I have one more book on my table that we will talk about in a couple of minutes, but I will like to start with a question about current political and military situation in Ukraine. Mr. Mahda, what is currently being said in Ukraine about the present situation on the military and political front? As I understand, there is a clear disintegration of military support for Ukraine in the West, above all because of a U.S. Congress. And how does Kyiv and the Ukrainian expert community sees the situation? Is a Russian breakthrough and the strategic advantage is really a possibility on the front? What are your thoughts on these questions?
As you know, Russia-Ukrainian war continues more than 750 days. And it's an active phase of this war. After February 24, after February 24, 2022, many peoples in Ukraine and in Europe began understanding that Russian invasion began in 2014 after occupation of Crimea Peninsula and after began of small war in Donetsk and Luhansk regions. But today we live in situation of biggest war in the world after World War II. And I think that Russia-Ukrainian war is not third World War, but it is our independence war. Without victory in this war, we cannot take our real independence, because history of relations between Russians and Ukrainians is difficult and have many tragic pages. Today, fighting continue, and we can see many problems in democracy camp, in problems with support of Ukraine. When I prepare to our discussion, I understand that we cannot say today about Republican Party as a great old party, but we can say about it new Trump party. And it's a new reality in inner policy of United States. It's a new reality in international relations. But with Western support or without Western support, Ukraine will continue fighting because we remember about Bucha, Mariupol, Izum, and many places of Russia genocide in Ukraine. And Russia won't make Ukraine as desert in Europe. It in Russia mind, Ukraine must be a biggest desert in Europe. But in Ukrainian territory, we have a natural desert, Aleshki sense in Kherson region, for example. But I think that our war is difficult, but Ukrainian continue support our army, and we want to win, because only victory is short road to our prosperity.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this answer. We clearly see the Ukrainians' will to continue the war, and that is absolutely immensely important for Lithuania, as we understand that Russia is not gonna stop at Ukraine if they will reach their objectives on the current front line, and we are very possibly the next stop for the Kremlin imperial ambitions. I would like to continue on the question of the present status in Ukraine, present political status and situation. The question is about war and politics. Couple of weeks ago, we saw this sort of a drama, as it was depicted in the Western media, drama between Zelensky and Zaluzhny, how the former general was replaced. Then he was appointed as the ambassador to the UK. And there were, of course, many rumors about why this kind of decision was made, whether there were some tensions between the personalities of Ukrainian president and the Ukrainian chief of army. My question is about politics in wartime. So, is politics returning to Ukraine, or is there any serious pressure on Zelensky from his political opponents at this very moment?
As you know, my dear colleague, rumors is kind of weapon in this war, because this war continue not only on fields but in our minds, and we must remember this fact. In case of Zaluzhny, we have a problem with our Stratcom, with our Ukrainian Stratcom, and with possibility of Ukrainian power can to explain reasons of this activity. I think that Zaluzhny is not only chief of Ukrainian army, today former chief, but he started in war on the place of chief of army, but Valery Zaluzhny is one of dozen of Ukrainian generals who have a combat experience from 2014, and it problem do not explain this fact not only for Western allies, but for Ukrainian citizens. I think that Zaluzhny can be better ambassador in NATO because his combat experience very big, very interesting, and can be useful for our allies. But the process of hunting for agreement
Yes.
is a very clear picture of problem in Ukrainian power. This problem is very closer to your question, because the main enemies of Zelensky are not Ukrainian politicians, not Poroshenko or not Yulia Tymoshenko or Pritula. I think that the main enemies of Zelensky are mistakes in state policy, corruption, impossible activity in diplomacy, with problem with Zaluzhny, and it's a strong problems, a difficult problems, but I think that today we don't want re-elect president because presidential elections in country in time of war have many problems. Many problems with elections paper, many problems with our refugees in countries of Europe, many problems with independent controllers. Not many foreigners want to go to Ukraine because, for example, this
You observe the election, right?
this night was alarm, sky alarm in Kiev, for example.
Yes, we are talking on the 21st of March, and last night there was a huge bombing of Kiev, and there were many injured people.
But I think that our main recipe for Ukraine is victory, not elections. Victory first, and elections in 6-8 months after finished of war activity.
Yes, I quite agree, and there are some talks in the West and by some analytics there that Ukraine should hold the election, presidential election, but I think it's really immature to state these kind of comments when the state is in war. And you very rightly pointed out the main obstacles for a free and fair and transparent and well organized elections that could take place in Ukraine. There is no such opportunity at this very moment when the country is at war. What you've talked about and that sound quite interestingly for me. Was about the problems of Stratcom in Ukraine, that there is a problem with the strategic communication of Ukraine. It was quite surprising to hear that for me, because we usually think and say that the strategic communication by Ukraine is quite well as we see it. But of course, you are an insider. You see it better. And of course, those points about the main enemies of President Zelensky being mistakes as such, not political enemies, and corruption, which is very hard to fight, of course. Your main expertise as the political analyst is a hybrid war. One of the main expertise besides Belarus as a country and its politics. I have this book on the table that you gave to me, and I'm very grateful for that, which is called Russia's Hybrid Aggression: Lessons for the World. It was published in 2018, if I'm not mistaken. So 4 years prior to full-scale Russian war of aggression against Ukraine. Well, the question is very basic. What are the lessons for the world about the Russia's hybrid aggression that was conducted and that are still conducted in Ukraine, and of course, in some way, conducted in other parts of the world?
I think that today we cannot speak about hybrid aggression because we can see the main war of this century between Russia and Ukraine. But tools of influence of Russia continue, and we can see about maybe new challenges of new tools of Russia. And if you know a song, Love is All Around, hybrid activity or Russia-Kremlin activity can be in all areas of our lives. For example, fakes are cheapest weapon of mass destruction. Not lethal, but very effective, and can create a parallel reality, can create panic, can create undermining of democracy traditions and procedures. Russia very well studied rules of law in many European countries, in United States, and can undermine a process of elections, for example, in maybe not in United States, but in for example had a tools of Brexit, how to create this process stronger. And I think that we must understand the scale of danger. War on battlefields is not enough for understanding of Russia's strategy. Kremlin want to see all Europe as a vassals of Kremlin, and can create many false values for Europeans. And about problems, rights of minorities, problems of refugees, for example, in 2015, 2016. But now when millions of Ukrainian refugees are in European countries, we don't hear about problems with Europeans. Fakes and disinformation. I think that it's a main tool, because Russia use tools of propaganda for creating of church of strong arm, strong Russian arm, and we must create a new courses of media literacy, of critical thinking for understanding this fact. After COVID, after start of Russia-Ukrainian war, we must understand the roots of Kremlin activity and must create our common narrative. For example, in Balto-Black Sea region, it can be narrative about democracy, about prosperity of democratic countries, about our relations in our region, about possibility of creating a new economy in blood fields, as Timothy Snyder says about our region. Yeah, and I think that Russia want to be biggest hybrid in world, but after re-elections of Putin, I see a new threat. I think that Putin prepare for new invasion. He want to invite through territory of Belarus, in Poland, maybe in Lithuania or Latvia, and he want to explain for all the world that NATO cannot be a biggest alliance, political defense alliance in world. That NATO is not a value for Russia and for Russia allies. And after this activity, we can imagine position of Viktor Orban, for example, or position of Robert Fico, position of far rights and Eurosceptics in many European countries. But also we can see a position of Boris Johnson and position of Olaf Scholz. And I think that Putin's desire be a strong man, a geopolitical strong man, and she want to be like Stalin, but in our century.
That's very interesting. We have these talks. In fact, as you are here in Lithuania for the Kalinowski conference, which at the center of which is the question of Belarus. But generally, in the Lithuanian public discourse, we have this really high intensity debate about the near-term prospects of Russia's potential aggression against a NATO country, and we have indeed quite a fundamental discussions about what should be Lithuania's defense and security policy at this very moment. I will not delve in that question of the possibility of Russia's aggression against NATO, but let's talk about and I know that you have put some thought on the question of the stable post-war arrangements and the relations between the West, Ukraine, and Russia. I mean, what measures will the West have to take to ensure that Russia can never launch aggression against its neighbors? What do you think? What kind of measures and means should the West and both and Kyiv too should implement after the victory? And I mean victory in full its words. After Ukraine will regain the territory of the borders prior to 2014.
I live in Kyiv, and after start of full-scale aggression, many peoples can see invasion from territory of Belarus. And in this time, I understand idea that without democratic Belarus, we cannot create security Europe. Because we don't want to see Belarus as Russian Balkony. But we must help Belarus to be a state, successful state in middle of Europe. It's a long process. This process is impossible with Lukashenko. But today I cannot imagine a new leader of Belarus who was elected, for example, in next year, and who can elected without pro-Russian position. I think that in contemporary Belarus, it's impossible. But we must work with Belarusian democratic forces, and the area of our activity is deconstruction of Russia. Deconstruction because many Russian allies don't want hear about new Nuremberg process of Tokyo process. Yes, today is impossible because war continue. But factor of nuclear weapon, factor of Russian Empire is very interesting because as historian I know that all imperials died, and we must explain this fact. People in Russian regions, for example, in Chechnya, Ichkeria, in Yakutia, in Tatarstan, and it's not short and simple process, but I think that we can see a death of Russian Empire and create a dozens sovereign countries on ruins of former Soviet Union or today former Russian Empire.
That's very interesting. So you say that Belarus has to be the most important variable in the post-war territorial and political map of Europe, and that we as the West and Ukraine should do everything that is at our disposal to grant Belarus an independence and the best democratic independence. My last question to you is that about the near-term future of Belarus. Of course, we see it as the Lukashenko, he's still in place, but we have Russian soldiers in Belarus. We have We have, of course, in 2022, February to the 24th, one of the directions of the attack was from Belarus towards Kyiv. How do you see the near-term future of Belarus, whether after the natural or unnatural death of Lukashenko, whether Putin will annex Belarus officially as he did with Crimea in 2014?
I think that Putin, after presidential re-elections, can do it quickly and can use Belarus as a platform for aggression. Now, this or last week, foreign policy write about nuclear weapon in Osipovich in Belarus. And it's a very interesting fact because Putin says about transit of nuclear weapon from Russia to Belarus in Belarusian Day of Freedom, День воли, in 25th of March last year. And I think that it was a reaction on order of International Criminal Court for arrest of Putin for kidnapping of Ukrainian kids. I think that key to process of Belarus democratization lies in death of Putin. But it can be a very short period, and it may be open window for all of us who want to see this process and want understand the role of Belarus. Belarus today is all European Russian Cinderella. But I want to see Belarus as a double center, Ukraine and Belarus, in fighting of with Russian imperialism.
Yes, I quite agree that I wanted to. Let's hope that in some future that we will hopefully see this kind of scenario taking place. I want to thank you very much, Mr. Yevhen Mahda, for this thrilling conversation. I just want to remind our listeners that we've been talking with Yevhen Mahda, who is a Ukrainian analyst and the lecturer. Thank you for listening. You've been listening to the Right Mind podcast, and we will hear each other next week. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.